from the VMP ranch in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, with me, Justin, and Joe. Joe's fresh off the dyno, literally.
Yeah, it smells like... Do I smell like a 70 Mach 1? I don't think I should.
Smell like a 70 Mach 1 with a Coyote swap.
Yeah, yeah.
Those old cars do have a certain smell.
They do.
I don't know what it is.
I think it's on some of like the port injection, like old, not port injection, like TPI, TBI Chevy stuff. I think it's the way the fuel burns as it's introduced into the cylinder.
And it's not just the smell of the fuel, but it's the like the interior, the
plastics off-gassing and carpet and foam.
It just kind of has that old stale smell. But I mean, this car looks like it's brand new.
Looks like everything's new on it.
Yeah. A longtime customer of ours trailered his car down from Tennessee to have his Coyote swapped Gen 2R 70 Mach 1 dyno tuned.
True story.
It's a pretty car.
Yes.
It is. And
I mean, it's really pretty simple. So the older cars have a much narrower engine bay. I noticed when I was looking at it, but he used basically our 15 to 17 kit. So the JLT, the engine bay is narrower on the S550, so the JLT kind of comes out and tucks in, and he's got the lower height intake manifold that comes with the 15 to 17 kit, so it all packages pretty darn nice.
Yeah, that, and he's got what seems to be an aftermarket front suspension where you can cut the strut towers out of them. Oh, yeah. So, because he's got little like delete plates in there, but yeah, overall clean setup. Just a couple, as with most swap things, you got a couple hiccups along the way.
Getting those all sorted out for him.
Exactly. Do we got any types of questions or anything coming in yet?
No questions yet.
Okay. Do we want to just jump into Gen 3 TVS stuff since that's a prevalent topic of conversation on the 0304 Cobra pages?
Let's get everybody really fired up first.
Like, share, and subscribe.
I want to throw a conspiracy theory. Sorry, I saw some specks of dust on the table. I want to throw a conspiracy theory out there because I just feel like they're not lively enough. Little known fact, we used to own the dyno that car was dynoed on.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can have that. We're going to have a different dyno. So was that one of the mobile dynos that you had built a long time ago? Nice.
Gosh.
It looked familiar because it had a diamond plate and it was drive up from the back, it looked like.
Yeah. That was version 5, number 5 rear wheel drive dyno. Nice. Yeah, and those guys at VMPPerformance bought it from us years ago. I mean, Joe, it was like well before you worked at VMP, and you've been with us for almost 4 years now?
Yeah, I think I'm coming up on 4 years and probably a couple months.
Yeah. So, and they've just been, man, they're out of Alabama, and they just work their butt off tuning everything in sight and making a lot of horsepower, apparently.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there for the conspiracy theorists, just,
It's Justin's old dyno.
Full disclosure. We have owned something like 10 different DynoJet rollers from different mobile dynos, different dynos in the shop. We actually have 3 dynos right now in the company.
Did you ever have one of those crazy, I think it's like a 54 or 48 inch rollers?
No, I never did, thank God. They're just too much to move around. DynoJet's old 248, they discontinued those. Because, I mean, you need a huge pit, you need a sky-high lift. I mean, it just takes up a lot of shop space.
There was one that came to TX2K.
Oh, mobile ones,
I think,
yeah.
The year that Alex and I went, there was what seemed like a gigantic roller DynoJet out there.
I mean, they're good if you have something with like 2,000 horsepower because the larger diameter roller gives you more traction, but we don't really have a problem with a 24-inch roller.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Tim wants to know, do you guys recommend a certain oil in higher boost applications?
I wouldn't say that I personally recommend anything specifically different. I just defer to Ford's recommendation on illuminators of 550.
Yeah, Ford specs illuminator, 5W50 an illuminator, which is the GT500 oil, which was the Ford GT oil. Back when the 500s first came out, like in the late 2000s, there was not a 5W50 spec made commonly available from other oil manufacturers. Ford was the only one, so there's a big discussion about like 15W50, which is actually commonly available.
That'd be like a diesel weight oil, wouldn't it?
Yeah, something, yeah.
I used Rotella T6 in my old Cobra that I built the motor for.
I think oil is what like works for you. If you're,
yeah,
if you
as
wanna,
long as it preaches like API or GLI specifications.
Let's look at Facebook.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's good enough. What'd you say, Carrie?
They had a freeze on Facebook, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like it's trying to come back.
There it is.
Yep, there we go.
Any more questions?
Yeah, we do. Dale wants to know if we have an 18 Roush update.
It does put good burnouts. It runs good.
Yeah.
So, probably in August, we're going to make some horsepower with that mofo. We're getting projects out of here left and right. Every week, some long-term projects are getting finished up. So, Joe was tuning on a Whipple supercharged car this morning.
I was.
So, getting some data, some good dyno numbers and some good data points on that setup.
Matt Morrison commented, says she is still rocking and rolling too, just in Mod Mafia Performance, Mississippi Gulf Coast. Okay.
Nice.
Cody says, what kind of results is the 2650 seeing on Terminators?
Terminators.
Bum, bum,
Bum, bum, bum.
So, man, it's been probably 3 or 4 weeks now before, you know, since we shipped out like the big batch. Like we shipped out like 15 Terminator blowers one day. We went live on Facebook. It was right before the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So really, Ryan Davis and the Mod Mafia crew are the first ones to get back, like, you know, independent dyno results. Cody, so this is what we tell everybody. We've obviously done a lot of testing with the blower initially, and we've shown results, and then people want more results. They want the results 5 different ways. The Cobra's got there's a lot of different potential builds out there for Cobras. It's got a lot of miles on it. That car has more variability in horsepower numbers than any of combinations in recent history. So you're going to want to run a larger pulley. It's going to make more power because it's more efficient. The results that came in over the weekend, actually it was more like Sunday night, Monday morning. The car made 858 rear wheel horsepower.
Through a 470W.
Through a 470W, so, you know, figure a little extra drivetrain loss. They were on a 3.0 upper and a 4-pound lower. The car previously made, I think in the
750s, 720s?
Yeah, 750 range with a Gen 2. And who knows, you know, like when you have you have a combo that you're really comfortable with, you max it out beyond belief. I don't know that anybody is like super comfortable with a Gen 3 where they're really pushing it super hard yet. But yeah, it made some good numbers. So
yeah, congrats to the Mod Mafia guys, and I think the guy's name's Ryan something.
Ryan Davis, I believe. Yeah, it's his car. I know he's on the 0304 Cobra groups. He's been teasing for a little while, and there was some fittings for some fuel rails and some other miscellaneous stuff. But we hope people bring more results. The Gen 3 specific cold air is going to be ready here. I should have a small batch of tubes in the next week or two. So we can get you, if anybody wants one of those, we'll make them available for sale. We'll put an announcement out, but it's going to help support the power that the Gen 3 is capable of making. If you put a little tiny cold air on it, you know, don't expect it to breathe real great.
Yeah. Anything else prevalent coming through the pipeline there?
Jimmy says he's got an 03 Terminator. I have an X3 tuner. Is it worth going to an X4 for any reason besides display and data logging?
I'd say for any reason besides display and data logging. So I think he's saying, from a loading the tune on the car standpoint, is it any better to have an X4 versus an X3? They both do the same thing. If you're looking at it from the standpoint that actually matters, the data logging and display point, then yeah, get the X4.
CMO117 says, when is the VMP Throwback 4.2 project going to happen?
Oh, gosh.
4.2. For a second there, I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh, truck engine.
I think I still have a 4.2 crank in the shop.
Where the hell is that?
It's
going to be in some dark corner.
Yeah, it's in the old shop next to the milling machine. I think there's a 4.2 crank in a box.
Oh, man.
I'm just going to tell you that we're not bringing that back without a modern motor. You know, I mean, maybe an EcoBoost V6 would be cool, but I'd rather put a 5-liter in it.
It was Ryan Jordan's car we were just showing.
Okay, cool. So I thought, oh, Ryan, I said Ryan Davis, Ryan Jordan. Sorry, Ryan.
Sorry, Ryan. Ryan's actually chimed in right now. He's watching. Hey, Ryan.
Nice.
Let's see. Hector says, hello. Would like to know if there's an update on the progress of the 160 millimeter throttle body for daily driving.
We are continuing to do R&D on that. I know we've got some bunch of little steps that will hopefully result in some big updates here coming soon. So we're continuing to work on that.
Vincent says, hold on. He's laughing. He's like, uh-oh, the data from the Mod Mafia is biased. Haha, keep up the great work, guys.
I'm just going to throw that out there. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
He says, keep up the great work, guys. Chris says, I would like to know how much does throttle body size affect intake temps / heat soak 2650?
I wouldn't say it really affects it much at all.
Yeah.
Matt Morrison says, we already mentioned, she's still rocking. Luke says, I have an 06 with Roush TVS 2300. I'm currently tuned with dual supercar pumps and a Kenne Bell dual boost pump and 60-pound injectors with stock rails. I dyno'd at 580 to the wheel. I want to run E35 and want to know if I slapped a set of FIC 100-pound injectors, if it would be okay.
A setup like that should be okay.
Yeah.
You're not really moving enough air to max out that injector. I don't know whether or not your engine's built or whatnot, but I would say probably in that ballpark of you should have a built motor by now.
Yeah.
With your 560 on a 3-valve.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should be good on those injectors at your airflow right now.
I actually did some math for that, like back in the 3-valve days, and I think it works out, dual pumps and 1000s.
Oh, I thought he was just saying from the injector standpoint. I didn't think about the GT pumps and the
GT supercar
boosters.
pumps aren't all that great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're just kind of like a Walbro from back in the day.
Yeah.
But monitor fuel pressure. If it drops off, you'll need to do something about it.
Yeah.
It won't be catastrophic. It'll just be trailing off into the lower 30s most likely, if they're not enough. They might be enough.
Yeah.
Joe wants to know, what size map did you decide on for the new intake for Gen 3 Cobra?
Good question. The first ones available will be take either a 100 millimeter VMP or a 110 millimeter JLT. And we are looking at if the room allows to use 120 millimeter housing, PMAS housing with the Venturi and everything. That is going to be a tight package, but I think if you're going for those 800 plus numbers, you're probably going to want stuff as big as it possible.
Rodrigo McMaster says, Joe, need a dyno appointment for the Lightning. It didn't like the same new pumps. LOL.
I think I know who that is. I think it's a Kenne Bell, like 01 Lightning. You need the fuel system and stuff.
Well, that's, on a vehicle like that with a return style system.
It's usually a base pressure issue if
Yeah.
it's not running well after a pump swap, but just shoot me an email, Rodrigo, or give me a call.
That, with a returnless system, there is some tuning involved with the PID gains and the feed forward voltage table for the particular pump. Different pump and motor mechanisms respond differently, but with a return style system, if the fuel's either there or it's not there.
And then base pressure is right or it isn't right.
Yeah. You can have weird shit like one of the pumps wired backwards and not producing fuel. Been there, done that.
Yep.
Five Ghost Production says, I have your tune for E85 and 93 on a 79 millimeter pulley. Do you guys make tunes specific for the drag strip that makes more power than the ones that focus on drivability? Sorry if it's a dumb question.
Not a dumb question.
Trade-offs. What trade-offs exist? Which ones are real? Which ones are not?
I'd say peak power. There isn't really a trade-off that we actively seek. We basically set tunes up for the octane available. So I'd say your peak power on a what we'll call a drag strip tune is the same above 4,500 RPM as it is on a street tune.
Again, what Joe's kind of saying is there's no compromise for drivability versus watt performance. They're two different parts of the map.
Mm-hmm.
The big compromise is fuel quality, octane available.
Exactly. But yeah, short answer, there's really shouldn't be any difference. Unless you tell us to get super aggressive with it, then we might cram a little bit more into it down low than just letting it push in.
And that's really where, you know, running a number at the track, if you want to go faster than everybody else, having a tune on the razor's edge can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and it's not always about that on an auto car. It's about shift points,
mm-hmm.
And a couple other things. But best thing to do is, if you're a tuning customer of ours, get us a track log, and we can look at it and tell you if there's anything left in it.
True story.
Cody wants to know, is the 173 throttle body a direct match-up to the 2650 GT500 inlet?
It is, as well as 160. The only ones that need adapters are stock, or if you want to run the big Whipple elliptical. Those you'd have to stack adapters to do. But
or match our adapter to the Whipple elliptical.
Yeah.
But it's literally line on line with the 173 to the machined qualified opening on the Gen 3.
Okay. Gary says, hey guys, thanks for all your knowledge. He has an 09 GT with Roush M90. I have the VMP 1.9, was curious what size injectors I should get and which throttle body you would recommend. Plans on building bottom end eventually, or putting on the 5.4 block with forged.
So you'd have to be using adapter plates, because no one makes a...
5.4. 5.4 is a whole nother game to do a 5.4 bottom end. Because the spacing on the cylinder head actually changes because the deck height changes on a 5.4.
Yeah, I think it's like Riker Racing or someone else made adapter plates for that way back when. You'd have to use that. But your simple question, injectors and throttle body. On a setup like that, if you're still on the stock engine, you could go with a GT500 throttle body or one of our twin jet 67s. Either of those would complement it pretty well.
And if you already have like a twin 62 made for the GT bolt pattern, that's fine to use on the stock engine too.
Exactly.
The limiting factor is the stock engine at the moment until you upgrade that.
Exactly. And then injector, if you're low boost, the 38s that came on the Roush kit will physically work. If you're medium boost, go to like a GT500 47. If you're gonna go 15, 16 pounds on pump gas, throw a set of 56s in it. If you want to go E35, do a set of ID 1000s or FIC 1000s or DW95s.
Dorian just chimed in. He's in late, and of course he wants to know. Can you guess?
Updates on the 18.
On the 18 and F-150.
Updates on the 18 and F-150. We do have an F-150 coming in week after next for a 18 F-150 for a Roush Pelleter kit install.
That was that big, gigantic Roush box that we're not used to seeing.
Yes. It's huge. I can't even imagine what's in there.
So yeah, we're doing an 18 F-150 Roush blower install. And then...
There's actually a video coming out on our 18 where the supercharger is mentioned.
Nice.
But it's really about the exhaust.
What's the deal with yours? I know that we just put a new drive shaft in it.
My truck is it spun the drive shaft after American Muscle, and I don't know why, but it's fixed now. So it's got a Gen 3 on it. It's a freaking monster on the street. I come out of here and I roll into it. I roll into it slowly, and by the top of second gear, it's spinning the rear end.
And that's with your new honk hooks.
Yeah, yes, at 60, 70 miles an hour. But it's just, we've been too busy and it's too hot to race. The drag strip is kind of quashed this time of year because it rains about 75 to 80% of the time.
I think OSW is closed till August 1st.
Or did they just close this year?
I think so.
There was a whole big drama because all the people that were on staff weren't getting paid for a month or two because they were on call, but it rained every weekend, so they got called off every night. So Unfortunately, they probably should just close and let everybody take summer vacation. It sounds like that's what they did.
That works.
Wilson says, I have an 04 Cobra. How are the IA2 temps on the new blower? Any concerns? If so, what can be done to lower it? I haven't found any aftermarket heat exchangers under the supercharger out there.
So he makes one.
Yeah, they make some, I think, replacement style cores. I don't know how much more efficient they are. J2 Fabrication has some solutions. Everybody right now, like, there's line upgrades which are great to get more water flow. We're also looking at VMP, we're looking at tube and fin cores that are more efficient at transferring the heat out of the air. But if you keep boost reasonable, like for a street setup, 700 wheel or something like that, just 22 pounds, it's a manageable situation. It's when you start to really drive things higher, or you have everything degrades with age. Like, we've looked at intercooler cores that have corrosion in them and clogging and weird stuff. So it's just making sure your stuff's in good condition and managing it appropriately for the power level of the build.
Yeah, basically just keep it reasonable, and you shouldn't have a big issue as long as the car is healthy.
Brian says, at what horsepower range do you recommend locking out cam phasers or deleting them?
I don't know that I have one.
All that stuff started early on because, this is my theory at least, Joe. When Coyote VCT first came out in 2010, nobody knew anything. Like, oh, let's run 600 lift and 150 pounds of seat pressure on on the
spring.
Oh yeah, on the race setup, on the valve spring, and that's just like, that will break shit left and right, whether it's a Coyote or a GT500. Sorry. If you have cam profiles and spring pressures designed for VCT, you can run VCT and you can make, on a blower car, 1,000 plus, on a turbo car, probably a little bit more.
It comes in handy. If you're ever on the dyno, you can move the cams around, see if you're leaving anything on the table, instead of having to pull covers off and redegree stuff.
You get better fuel economy, better drivability, better idle quality with VCT. I've got a car that I tuned that has locked out, it has pretty mild cams that are locked out intake and exhaust wise. I think deleting VCT, you get rid of 6 pounds of rotating mass on the valve train, so that's actually pretty significant. But it just really depends on what you're doing with the setup. If you're a serious class racer, you're building that thing for consistency and reliability. You never want to win a race or lose a race or run a slower time because you had a VCT hiccup. So it's just a balance of needs and goals and available technology and parts.
Hector says, another question. I see in your website an engine area ice tank that works up to 14. Could it be possible to be installed on a 15 plus?
It won't work on 15 plus because the engine bay is so much different. That narrower engine bay thing we were talking about earlier, the space where the 15 up ice tank goes doesn't actually, or the space where 11 to 14 goes doesn't exist on 15 up. If somebody wants to run over to my office, there's a prototype 15 up ice tank. We've had a lot of problems with the previous ice tank supplier and delays, so we finally moved over to a new supplier who's actually cheaper and hopefully hits the deadline. So 11 to 14 ice tanks, when those come in and everything's good, we're going to look at making 15 up ice tanks, because I actually have a couple of them. He's going to go grab one. A couple prototypes that were hand fabricated, but all this stuff's got to be, you got to hit you got to have the design functionality, you got to hit the price point, there has to be demand for it, and it's kind of a niche product, unfortunately. I'll tell you though, I love the underhood ice tank because you install it in 5 minutes, there's no running lines, it doesn't add a lot of weight to the car.
Captain Dusty Pants. There you go.
Yeah, so
thanks, sir.
As you can see, it looks much different. Oh wow, yeah, these really are pretty dirty. This is, trying to tell if this is my welding or Nick's welding. Oh, this is, yeah, the slope added a little bit of extra volume versus making it straight. So These are what the 15 up ones will look like when we're able to bring into production. And
are they going to be coated like the 11 to 14?
Yeah, they'll have that black textured coating.
Okay.
Which is just Line-X really. It adds a little bit of cost, but it apparently is effective at keeping them from sweating, and it just gets kind of, you know, rid of all the sharp edges that aluminum has and stuff like that.
Makes it magical. Any other questions coming through there, Miss Carrie?
Yeah. Steven says, I dropped 30 pounds of rotating weight by changing my wheels and tires. On the VMP dyno, my F-150 put down 493 to the wheel and 434 torque. How much of an increase should I expect to see?
We had this conversation last Tuning Tuesday, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I'd say probably not much at all from a measurable wheel horsepower difference. It's not so much about the rotating mass. I mean, it is to a certain degree, but I don't think losing 30 pounds of rotating mass is going to net a verifiable gain. The
dyno doesn't seem to measure it in that way, given all the other... I mean, when you got 500 wheel horsepower, you got a lot of horses accelerating the roller, doesn't it?
If you had an 80 horsepower car that made 70 pound-feet of torque, I think that'd certainly be a noticeable difference, but you're in that realm of where 30 pounds isn't really a lot.
But at the track, 30 pounds of rotating weight, that may, you know, we know it's better.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it lighter from an overall mass as it's going down the track standpoint, but also from a rotational standpoint.
And I think that matters on wheels and tires much more than drive shaft.
Yeah.
Daniel says, can you guys tell me what numbers to expect from a 1750 manual with an 18 manifold, 47 injectors, E35, JLT intake, and comp stage 3 cams? It will be set up for daily driving, it looks like.
If the cams are at the right position and timing's happy, E85's happy, the dyno's a dyno jet, it's SAE or standard, like 480.
Joe's standard disclaimer list.
Yeah, exactly. Just insert macro. Maybe 500 if it's a really happy car and it's at like 32, 33 degrees of timing.
Yeah, I mean that's what this combo should make. It's got some good camshaft in it. It's got some good breathing in the intake manifold area. I don't know that you need much more throttle body than what's factory just for that power level. A lot of the magic I think is in the runner and in the camshaft. So
if I was doing stuff like that though, I'd probably just have a Cobra jet on it.
So,
or Boss.
Interesting that we get these questions. I think we mentioned track attack is naturally aspirated because it's a 17 motor with long tubes, so it's perfect from an airflow standpoint for testing. It is going on the dyno tomorrow, and it is going to get no less than 7 or 8 different intake manifolds. And it will get run with each one. We will get numbers
on each one.
Manifold shootout.
Intake manifold shootout.
Steve says, initial results on the 2650 are looking great.
Thank you.
Anyone on the Terminator side going to be campaigning one at the NMRA World Finals this year? Do we know?
I don't know how many the Terminator racers are going to make it up there. I don't know if Rick's going to make it up there this year. It looks like we're not going to make it up there, unfortunately. We don't sponsor the Terminator GT500 shootout anymore, and it just it doesn't seem to be, doesn't seem to bring a huge car count, unfortunately. I know at Mod Nationals you will definitely see some Gen 3 Terminators there, so if you can make it down to South Georgia Motorsports Park for Mod Nationals, definitely see some stuff.
All the things.
Yeah.
Nick says, what causes hesitation during quick throttle position increases and shifts on a returnless? 500 wheel power, 4.62 valve, 60 pound injectors, 340 in tank pump, VMP voltage booster, and 93 octane.
Partially the characterization of that 340 pump and the way it's working with your factory returnless system. The hesitation that you feel is probably variance in fuel pressure because the pump isn't reacting in the way that the ECU thinks it should.
Depending on the power level, that computer wasn't really fast enough to handle
Would that be like a 24 megahertz computer?
Yeah, 24 megahertz, 16-bit.
Man.
It's pretty darn basic. 250 kilobit calibration size. I mean, the new computers, the new gas computers are like 4 megabytes file size, just for calibration. So there's just not a whole lot of horsepower there in the computer to control the returnless fuel system. That's why return is great for those older cars.
Justin says there'll definitely be a lot of 2650 VMP at Mod Nationals.
Nice, nice.
Rob says he has a 17 Whipple Mustang with OPG and timing gear done. What are your guys' thoughts of the N2MB watt box with the no lift shift feature? Have MT82 RST clutch will throw any misfire codes?
Depending on how it's set up, it may. Most of the ones I see out there don't.
Yeah, it just depends on if you got a whole lot of misfire detection going on a wide open throttle shift. The monitor, I don't know if it's effective up there, the misfire monitor.
The background misfire monitor, if it's a stock cal, stops at 6850.
Okay.
So if he's using the no-lift shift, but it's still bringing the shift RPM down to like 5,700, it may, but hard to say.
Jonas says, hey guys, thanks for the tune for my 15 F-150. Love coming down soon for y'all to put it on the dyno.
Cool.
Nice, nice.
So, the Goblin wants to know, when will we be getting the 11 to 14 VMP ice takes back in stock?
We're about probably 4 to 6 weeks out at this point. I know the order is in with the supplier.
Philip says, building an 04 Cobra street/strip machine, looking for 700 to the wheel, considering the 6R80. What are your experiences with that trans at that power level, and how do they react to trans brakes?
I feel like those are all very non-platform specific questions. 700 wheel, they seem to do fine. Trans brakes, depending on which trans brake it is, they also seem to do fine. I really wouldn't have any concerns about putting a 6R80 in there. I would say that while it's out, it'd probably be a good idea to put an intermediate shaft in it and a set of clutches. But 700 wheel, it should live a while there, as long as it's calibrated properly.
Make the car a lot faster if it can hook up.
A hell of a lot faster.
Scott Hasty wants to know, does anyone offer a heat exchanger with 1-inch lines?
Oh, well, there might be some requests.
Wow, you mentioned that.
There might be some requests to engineering for that. And Hasty, I think you're baiting us because you're sending us I'm sending you pictures of stuff that comes in. Yeah, I mean it's gonna have to be offered to go in that direction. So yeah, for sure.
GZ Stang, I have a 13 GT NA with usual bolt-ons, 91 octane tune. Question is, my buddy beats me by 2 car lengths in the quarter every time. Will switching to E35 tune be enough to take him out?
I don't think E85 will be 2 cars.
I mean, like, wonder what that 2 cars is. Wonder what that is in tenths.
I don't know, because I mean, if you're talking quarter mile and like 11-second cars, 2 cars is usually like 3/4 of a second.
Yeah. As Chad Dowd watching, I bet I know all these grudge racers and street racers. I know
they know how to qualify the seconds.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Chad on today.
I think that scales with ET though.
Yeah, it would have to change with ET. Yeah. Like, what's the back tire worth?
Scott Hasty also has another question. He says, my intercooler brick is going on its 5th season now. Any plans on offering upgraded intercoolers?
Yes, Mr. Hasty, that is something we are working on.
And that actually catches us up on all the questions right now.
Questions. So we were also on the dyno with a, I was on the dyno with a GT500 yesterday with a Gen 3 blower. And it's a 5.8 car, which we've run Gen 3s on everything, but we got to spend quite a bit of time with this car. And
this is a stock car.
Stock, yes, stock engine, stock 5.8 engine.
No cams.
Right, stock camshafts, long tube headers, and a stock crank pulley. So we didn't have a whole lot of blower speed to work with. We hit a really nice horsepower number, and all we used in it for fuel was boosting, which I don't know, there was a can of that somewhere. Thor was sitting on top of it last week, but the boosting, the little octane additive. So we're doing a whole video about it. There'll be lots of data in the video, but we want to give you a teaser of it so far. You got a dyno graph to run, Chris? Yeah, so we made 800 wheel at 20 pounds of boost on a stock 5.8 with long tube headers. Nice. We did use a 2.4 pulley, but that's flipping awesome, because with a 2.3 combo like that only makes 675, 700 wheel.
That, and if I recall correctly, you're still pretty conservative on timing on that, considering we knew it was
boosting.
Just boosting with 93.
In the summer weather, there's not great conditions over here either. The 2012 GT500 that we did, like at the tail end of when it was cool, that was just balls to the wall to get 800 wheel out of it. The 5.8, you could actually drive on the street every day with an additive and have that number. I think the owner was asking me, was it tapped out yet? I'm like, yeah, until you do camshafts.
Or throw a lower on it and throw it on a different fuel, like C16. Yeah. Not to say that Boostane couldn't do it, but that's kind of that point where it's like, I'd rather just have some race fuel.
Especially on stock pistons and rods.
Yeah. Anything funnel through in time of, not in time of that, but because of that?
We just got one. Philip says at 100 miles per hour, a car travels 14.667 foot per second. An 18 Mustang is 13 feet long, so a 2-car gap would be roughly 2 seconds at 100 miles per hour. So there you go. Okay.
Sounds like our buddy's going to need quite a bit more.
Yeah.
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 Chris says, would a tune from you guys for an almost stock 2017 GT 6-speed benefit me if I don't plan on revving it past 7,200, 93 octane?
Yeah. Well, the fun part about those is that most of the gain, if you look at total delta between one pole and another, there's actually more gain below 7 grand than there is above 7 grand.
Yeah, we did all the R&D on that cow, gosh, I don't know, what, 2 years ago now? And
maybe even 3 years ago now. Because that was late 2014 that we were working on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we got that stock 15 in late 2015.
Yeah, and we played with it even more.
Played with it more, but yeah, there's power to be gained. I mean, they make that car so unresponsive under the guise of smoothness. All the clutch protection in the manual, and even the shifts are too soft in the auto. So there's stuff to be gained there for sure.
We have no more questions right now, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in. We have, I don't know, maybe about 10 more minutes.
What are you going to dyno the rest of this week, Joe?
I have that one today. I haven't looked at Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I almost don't want to look. I got too much stuff going on right now.
John Pavia says, Justin, when can we get together and put a 2650 on my Cobra?
Whenever you want, John. We have Cobra elbows coming in next week.
That's news to be had right there.
Yes, Cobra elbows are early. A supplier got us a part early. That is
so
nice.
Weird.
Yeah, weird but nice. Yeah. So Pavia, blowers are here. Let's do it, man.
Andrew wants to know about the harnesses for the 18 intakes.
Those should be very close. I'll have to get an update. I know they're on order with the supplier and they're expedited, but all that stuff is good R&D wise. Joe's got the calibration down. It works good. Plug and play, 18 CMCBs, IMRCs.
Whichever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Naturally Aspirated says, I have a GT350 thinking about a carbon fiber shaft to improve drivability. What are your thoughts on the carbon fiber shafts?
I don't think you're going to feel a drivability difference unless it's a placebo.
Yeah. I mean, I had a 350 and several of my vehicles have had carbon fiber shafts. It's kind of a novelty, like, you you want to take something to the nth degree, then put carbon fiber shaft in it.
If you're trying to pull weight out of the car and it's the difference between leaving the stock seat in or pulling the stock seat out and put a Kirky in it, I'd put a carbon fiber drive shaft in.
That's a good point. I had to sit in a Kirky all day long.
Bobby Williams says, why hasn't John Pavia upgraded yet? I guess you'd have to ask John Pavia.
Pavia's car has been for sale, hasn't it?
It is. I think it's going to come out at Mod Nationals, though.
Okay. Maybe that's why he's waited so long.
Here's a question for you. Brandon says, I was on the American Muscle website looking at the VMP SCT tuner. If I read correctly, it says the device comes with 3 tunes. What does that include or mean?
Oh, man, that's a topic that is a thorn in my side on that stuff.
American Muscle is supposed to be updating their website.
Yeah, so do we want to tell them what we wanted it changed to versus what it was initially supposed to mean?
Yeah, let it all out.
So the 3 tunes isn't you don't get a tune for a cold air and then a separate tune for a cold air and injectors and then another tune for a cold air, injectors, and long tubes. It's a single tune for a single set of modifications, and then we modify that tune for up to 3 octanes total. So like if you have a GT350 intake manifold, a cold air intake, and injectors, then, well, technically that'd be level 2 since it's an intake manifold mod. But that aside, you'd get a tune. Let's say you run it on 93 most of the time, but sometimes only 91's available, and then you wanted to have a 100 octane file for when you go out to party with your friends. So you'd have a 91, 93, and 100, all for the same modifications. That is what the 3 tunes is meant to suggest, imply, and directly state. It's not 3 separate tune files for different modifications, just for different octanes. I believe we were changing it to only 1 octane, just because it seems to be a point of confusion for a lot of people, and we feel that most people only run 1 type of fuel 90% of the time anyways. So just to alleviate some of the mystery around that topic, we're just going to change it to where it's 1 tune file. So if you wanted to get a tune for multiple octanes, I'd say now's the time to order if it's still up like that, because it's probably going to be changing here soon.
Philip wants to know, on the 6R80, have you ever messed with the aftermarket controllers?
No. I know somebody that didn't have a whole lot of luck with one either.
Steven wants to know, is it possible to swap the 10R80 to replace a 6R80 transmission in a 16 F-150?
I think that is very possible. I think that is very unworth it. Sell your 16 and get an 18. That's probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to move the computer system over.
And then you're going to have to hope that all the modules interact with the 18 ECU like they should.
New cars are so freaking complicated that
I wouldn't do it. Do I think it can be done? I think it absolutely can be done, but to what degree you're going to have to go to get there. I don't know if you're going to have to buy every module in an 18 and splice it into a 16.
That's like, if you had a wrecked 18 sitting there and you could swap everything over. Okay.
Should it work? Yeah. But I'd just get an 18.
We have a bunch of questions starting to float in now.
So while you guys are hitting up all them questions, like, share, and subscribe. Got to pump those rookie numbers up.
Just to go back, so
no, not you, them.
Larry Duran chimed in and he said, just buy directly from VMP. He's been there, done that. And then he said, let's talk about auto swapping his car.
Oh, man.
Larry, I have a built 6R80 in the shed at my house.
And you have a TCI 6X.
Yes.
You got to get rid of that thing.
I got to eBay that thing. Yes.
Slab Shack says, how does the engine management system that you tune for Cletus work without MAP? P.S. He seems to really like Ford lately. Cletus did another video today on Project Neighbor. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So it tunes like a 15, 17 F-150. It's except on a simplified controller.
A very simplified controller. I literally had a table of RPM versus boost, and it fueled based on that. And it's closed loop, so it's always correcting. And it actually, there's a button, copy the correction over to the volumetric efficiency map. So you do that a couple times, and you get, you need less and less correction.
That's awesome to be able to do that live. So boop, boop, boop.
It was pretty cool. I mean, it was very basic, and you had to look for some things to try to get them to do it. I will tell you, whoever made the map for that thing originally had no idea how much a positive displacement GT500 motor moves air-wise.
Just on like a tip-in transient type thing?
Yes. So it took like tons of fuel I had to put into the tune. But once I did that, a couple hits, we were in business. So.
Does that have like a manifold volume style parameter?
It essentially does. It had two different tip-in fueling thresholds. One based on boost change, one based on throttle change.
Okay.
So kind of like a slow response, fast response type.
Would that be like a pedal follower style ECU, or is it torque based?
It was
in the sense that it's torque request.
It was all meant to be pedal follower.
Okay.
So the 6R80 you were talking about, that's sitting in your shed. Someone asked whether or not, if you're serious about selling it, to ping them up, and Rebecca said, Justin, I am not sentimental about anything except that damn 6R80 and my Britney Spears skirt. Do not sell it yet. I am not ready to let it go.
I knew that was the next thing. Is like, oh, is Rebecca going to get mad if I sell the 6R80?
She says, but the TCI 6-speed needs to go.
Babe, I think we have two 6R80s. One is stock out of the old 15 that is now Alex's car, and then one was one of her built transmissions, because we had a spare built 6R80 for her car at one point.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I gotta grab these questions real quick.
So should we tell them that there's the person that's curious about how did you tune it without a mass airflow sensor, that there's 3 main styles of controlling EFI? So you have your MAF, your speed density, then I believe it's F over N. The basically throttle position based.
Oh yeah.
So throttle versus RPM instead of a load calculation or cylinder filling calculation.
Larry says he gets it first. Benjamin wants to know, have you seen a 2650 make 1100 to the wheel yet? Which Coyote and GT500 has made that 1100?
I've seen a 2650 with a kit make almost 1300. Off the kit, I think that car was like 1070, 1080. Could I have pushed it harder on the blower? Yeah, but I knew that there was no real reason to, because it has a 200 kit on it. 200
kit that makes 250?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rebecca's car actually makes a lot of power through an unlocked Turbo 400. So if you were to dyno that on 6R80 or a manual trans,
just throw an MT82 in.
Yeah, throw an MT82 in there for the dyno pulls.
Yeah, her car would probably make 1100.
Yeah.
The way it is.
But we're always, we've got a whole bunch of parts that will make more power that we'll be testing. So the blower has pushed us to develop everything around it. Lower intake manifold, intercooler, etc., even the engine itself to handle the power. But we're still early in on the development curve.
We have about 3 minutes, but we have probably a dozen questions here, so I want to try and get through them real quick.
Boom, boom, boom.
Rapid fire.
Cody says 2017 5.0 VMP Gen 3 E35 long tubes headers PMAS 120 and twin 67. What will be the power level? What will the power level be at to the wheels with the MT82?
You said that was Gen 3, right?
Gen 3.
As much as you want to make.
And did he say 79 on Gen 3?
He's got E85, 67, twin 67.
No, I was saying pulley size.
He doesn't say here.
If you're on E85, basically whatever you want to make.
700, 750, 800, 850 with like an 82 or a 79 pulley.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's whatever you want it to be.
I can tell you that a manual car pump with boosting made I think it was 750 last week.
750 without corn, without that oxygenation effect of ethanol, which adds like 50 horse.
If it was on corn, that probably would have thrown another 4 or 5 degrees at it because I was only at 18, 19.
Yeah.
So.
AKDMB says, ever mess around with the 3.7 V6 Mustangs? Mine won't seem to safely take more than 20 degrees of timing peak, even on 93. Seems kind of low to me.
You have more experience with the 3.7s than I do.
I've done a little bit. That's a high compression motor, and it does not like timing. And I
know ProCharge, they do not like timing.
Yeah, that keep the knock sensors on and just go easy on it. Yeah. That's
Cody, who was just Cody, who was just asking about the Gen 3. He says 82 millimeter. Since you were asking about.
It'll probably be up around 800 wheel.
Yeah.
Depending on how happy the timing is on the E35.
Nick says, following up on my 2-valve, hesitating, do you believe it can be tuned around for the 340 pump, or will I need to just...
Limited.
Having to band-aid the problem with pseudo brake boosting from a roll.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't know what his...
Yeah.
How the tune's set up and how specifically the returnless fuel pump section's messing with it, or if it's just a hole in the MAF or a hole in transient, maybe manifold volume's not high enough or is too low, stuff like that.
He continued with a second thing, and it says, and running a watt box for shifts in order to keep the fuel demand constant.
I get with your tuner.
Yeah.
Or go return.
Return will solve a lot of problems. I feel like getting that 340 dialed in, I don't know who your tuner is, but it could be something as simple as a few hours to maybe a few days, depending on who's tuning it.
Josh Walton says, I put a stage 2 Gen 2R kit on my 17 GT last year. Not sure which throttle body came with it, but wondering if it would be worth it to upgrade to the Twin 67. I'm on a 79 millimeter pulley.
Yes, for sure.
Gary says, do you guys do bottom end builds, and how long would you need the car to do so? I'm planning on bringing it down this fall for my vacation to install the 1.9 TVS and tune.
I'll speak for Mike in this department. We don't like doing engine builds, only from the standpoint of when we do one of our race engines, or excluding what Rebecca did, we send everything off to be done by someone who does it on a daily basis, have it built, bring it back, then we get it in the car, put it on the dyno, get everything tuned, and get everything running right. So would we be happy to work with an engine builder to get you set up with a built engine? Absolutely. Is it something that we want to assemble here? No.
Rob wants to know, have we done any testing on a killer chiller versus ice tank at the track?
I don't think we have. No.
Chad says, are you guys working on anything as far as crossover tube is concerned with the 2650 on the 0304 Cobras?
Working on a little something that's different than what's being done out there by everybody today, but for the crossover tube itself, either either modify it or use one of the aftermarket parts if you choose to take that risk on.
Eber wants to know 6R80 swap 03 Cobra controller options.
Copperhead ECU.
That'd be the best. Put the Copperhead ECU in there. That thing's badass.
Yep.
Dual widebands, fast.
If you could get TIVCT into a Cobra engine somehow, you'd have a controller for it. But yeah, it's a great ECU. Just use that.
Brandon says, thanks for clearing up his question earlier.
No problem.
Nick says, how is the MGW shifter on the GT350? I'm thinking about doing it. Is it worth it?
It's nice. It's short, precise. Had one in my car. George personally installed it.
Ryan says, thoughts between the 07 to 10 GT500 versus the 11 to 12 GT500 as far as reliability and power potential from the factory?
I pick an 11, 12 every day of the week, but that's just because I like wide bands and knock sensors and aluminum blocks. I think from a reliability standpoint, the 11, 12 having knock sensors adds a degree of safety, but a properly tuned 07, 09 versus a properly tuned 11, 12, I think reliability is going to be similar with the two, barring no sensor failures and no octane issues and stuff like that.
K1500 must be a Cletus fan because he says, I got a buddy that is hoping in the next year to get that blower that neighbor got for his 07 GT500.
Nice.
So cool. Naturally Aspirated had discussed earlier about his GT350. He says he's not looking to increase speed, but handling, thinking about swapping suspension parts with lighter ones. What else do you recommend?
That car's pretty darn awesome from the factory. I drove mine around Sebring, and it was as fast as my Boss 302 on race tires. And I mean, it pivots mid-corner. It's controllable, predictable. I
think what you're getting at there is I don't know if you'd try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to modify a car. It's freaking awesome to modify a car, but...
I'd say start with tires if it was me.
Yeah.
Tires and maybe a brake pad upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, lightweight wheels, you know, but the suspension as it comes. That thing's got individual position sensors for each frickin' wheel to feed into the MagnaRide.
That sounds like a old S-Class Mercedes going into E-Class Mercedes.
You're literally getting like high-end European technology in a $60,000 Mustang.
Although, did Chevy make the patent for MagnaRide?
Yeah, I just don't want to talk about that.
Okay, so we're at 2:34. I have 3 questions that I'd like to hit real quick. So Jay-Z says, do you guys have a snout for sale? Looking to run a smaller pulley on my Roush 2.3 than 75. My snout measures 72.6 millimeters.
Well, shouldn't they be able to run a, I don't know.
Just go with a lower. Very limited availability on the snouts, and they're very expensive.
AKDMB says 3.7 has a CR of 10.5 to 1. Half a point lower than a 5.0. It seems to have more intake cam advance than the 5.0 though. That might explain the low knock tolerance. I don't know.
It's just a different chamber and a different engine. You can't really compare one compression to another because Coyote at 11 to 1 takes tons of timing for being 11 to 1.
Yeah, it takes 3-valve 9.5 or 9 to 1 timing.
Yeah.
Well, not quite there, but you get the point. Close enough.
Bobby says anything in the works for the 18 plus 5.0 trucks, blower wise?
We're looking at all the 18 up platform, basically.
Jay says, do you guys have, apparently you posted it on both channels. And then K1500 says, do you guys make blowers for the old 302?
We do not.
And that is it. We're going to call it a wrap.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Like Joe said earlier, like, subscribe, and share. And on next Tuning Tuesday, I will not be here. I will be on vacation. But Joe will be with Greg from FTI, and they'll be talking about 6R80 converters. And one more thing. Do you want to mention the vacations? Yes. Free vacation if you come and get your blower installed here at VMP. So we will pay for 2 nights hotel stay in New Smyrna Beach, near the beach, as part of some of our blower install packages. Nice. Yeah, so I will be putting some communications out in a couple days on all of our social channels, which will basically tell you the packages that you purchase. If you purchase a package plus install, we here at VMP will give you a 2-night stay at the beach. So. Nice. Nice. See everybody next time. Bye.